All right, we are recording. What do we want to say? What's the first thing we want to say? Well, first of all, this is Christian.
Hi.
But secondly, Happy New Year. Right?
Yeah.
Happy New Year,
Yeah.
2026. I want to say 2025 has brought so many blessings and so many things like this podcast that I cannot even believe are viable. Like things. It feels like things that are that you wouldn't even conceptualize. Right? You feel that way, right?
Literally, yeah.
And especially within this, and that's almost like in our lives in general, especially personally, but also within this podcast too, is like there have been things that have happened this year, and the people that we've gotten to meet this year has been like it's really been like unbelievable.
Truly.
And this episode is no different. First of all, Christian's here. He's in front of the camera for the first time.
It's true.
Because we are doing our first ever virtual episode. So, and we've been a little like hesitant to do these in the past because we've been like trying to figure out the technical element and how to make it look and sound the best way because we didn't want to skimp on the quality. And I feel like this one was beyond worth doing virtual.
Completely.
It
was. Yeah, it was perfect.
Yeah.
It worked out way better than we could have ever hoped.
Let's talk about our guest. Today, we have Aaron Lazar on the podcast. Now, if you've listened to the podcast before, you know that I have mentioned this multiple times on our show, right? Frankly, like I'll outwardly say, I've mentioned multiple times on our show, Aaron Lazar has been a big inspiration for this podcast. Okay. Mm-hmm. Aaron Lazar mentioned, if you've heard the story, I've said it multiple times, but I'll say it again. It's like Aaron Lazar mentioned on a podcast that when he was on the Dear Evan Hansen tour, he expected for the young people to ask him some questions as an elder in that show. And now, and when it happened, they didn't ask him as much as he had expected. And he had kind of felt like, and so it, like,
and then he had the reflection on himself, though, right?
And he had the reflection on himself a little bit, yeah. And also, I think too, like what rung true for me was, okay, wait a minute, you're so right. There are people in my life who I really admire and respect, and I've not gotten to ask them things that I've always wanted to ask them. So I always say, I called the godmother of our podcast, our fairy godmother, Michelle Palk. I called her immediately, and I was like, okay, wait a minute. I need you to tell me about Bounce. I need you to tell me about Cabaret. I need you to tell me about her whole career. And so what's pretty amazing is today we're getting the chance to do that a little bit
with him,
with Aaron Lazar,
with the guy who inspired it,
with the guy who inspired it. Yeah, and we talked a little bit less about literal career things as much as we talked about his journey, as much as we talked about the things that he wants to get the chance to the things that he wants to not teach, but the things that he's learned and that he wants to send out into the world and say, hey, take this. You know what I mean?
Wisdom, yeah, the guidelines.
And I guess like the perspectives and the perspective shift that he's gone through, because if you don't know so Aaron Lazar, who is Aaron Lazar? Aaron Lazar is a Broadway star.
It's true.
Aaron Lazar is you might have seen him in such shows like Oklahoma 2002, the Susan Stroman version. Light in the Piazza. He was in Little Night Music alongside Angela Lansbury, Catherine Zeta-Jones, right? And we mentioned him because he was Bradley Dean's I Want to Be Like You. Because Bradley Dean covered him in Little Night Music as well as The Last Ship, which he did, the Sting musical, which is coming back this year to the Met Opera, which Aaron Lazar originated as well. And the list goes on and on and on. I didn't get to mention this to him because I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot. He was in Girl Meets World, which, if you know this, I love Boy in Girl Meets World. He was in Girl Meets World, and also he was also Doctor Strange standby on Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame. And recently, within the last 5 years, he has been diagnosed with ALS. And what he's made it a point to do is to beat ALS. And he has done that by using, he's done that in a multitude of ways, but he's pushed the impossible dream. He's said that this is his impossible dream, and referring toward the classic show tune from Man of La Mancha, The Impossible Dream. And so he's come out with an album called The Impossible Dream, where he's sung the song in a very We Are the World style event eventized version that you have to watch on YouTube if you've not yet, because the people who get to sing this with him, Lin Manuel Miranda, Kristin Chenowith, Mark Kudish, Josh Groban, Sting. I mean, it's like the list goes on and on. Leslie Odom Jr., Brian Stokes Mitchell. I mean, like it is really a We Are the World style Broadway event. And then on the album, subsequently, there are songs with Kate Baldwin and Groban, and on and on and on. And he also has launched a podcast, the Impossible Dreams podcast, where he gets to talk to people like Mark Cuban, Kristin Chenowith, again, Ben Stiller, about the impossible dream, about trying to, make that impossible dream come true.
Yeah, and how to.
How to. And it's unlike any podcast we've ever done in the best of ways. And,
Truly.
a lot of it, although, in certain respects, you could deem it cerebral. I really liked what he said at the end, which you guys will get to listen to, which was that it's not meant to be cerebral. He's just trying to spread this information so that
It was tactical, to be honest. It was very tactical.
Right.
But yeah.
It was. What I was just going to say, that what I appreciated about it was that it wasn't intended to be cerebral. What it was intended to do was, put out the information, take it the way that you will, and then, and move forward with that knowledge, with that perspective. And gosh, there's so much perspective here. And I can say that I've been a fan of Aaron's for a long time. I mentioned it to him. I've appreciated his career. I'm appreciating what he's doing now. I'm following what he's doing now. Yeah. And I have a strong, I feel inspired by the end of this podcast. I'm like, I want to go out and do this podcast. The
Impossible Dream. Yeah.
The Impossible Dream. Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah. So we get to talking about the Impossible Dreams. And I task you honestly to think about, as viewers and listeners of this podcast and his podcast, what is your impossible dream? How are you going to get it? And what do you do? What are the steps you take to get it? Literally meaning physically and also spiritually, emotionally. It's a special podcast for sure. And that's why we decided to open the new year with this podcast, our first virtual episode. You want to say it with me? Today, I want to be like Aaron Lazar.
We harmonized, yeah.
Oh, that was nice. I want to be like you. 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 All right, looks like we're doing the thing. Sweet. Are we all good on audio, Chris?
Yep. Checking.
Aaron, can you talk for us 1 second? I just want to check that the
Yeah, check 1, check 2 on the microphone. Am I too quiet?
No, you're perfect. You're perfect. And let me make sure that we can hear you all the way. Great.
All right.
So good?
Mm-hmm.
So usually Christian's behind the camera.
Yeah.
But he can be in front now because he's going to be manning stuff while we're doing it, also contributing in his own way. So the show is called I Want to Be Like You with Elbi Cespedes, but I guess we could change to I Want to Be Like You with Elbi and Kristin Cespedes today.
I want to be like Christian's biceps. That's what I want to be like.
Yeah, they're bigger than my head.
Thank you, man.
This is such a pleasure. I think you've seen us talk about it, but like, you are a big reason why we started doing this in general. On the Carefully Taught podcast, you talked about being on the Dear Evan Hansen tour and about how you had expected a lot of the younger people.
Oh yeah,
who
I've heard you talk about this. Yeah.
And I think that it was such an inspiration. I talk about it all the time because when people ask me why I started this, that's a big reason. Is like, we decided that night. I called I call her my theater fairy godmother, Michelle Pock. She was our first guest, and I was like,
she's amazing. Hey, I love Michelle and John.
She's the best. They're both of them. They're the greatest. And I called her that night, and I was like, hey, I just listened to this podcast. I need you to tell me everything. So I appreciate you, even though it was subconscious. You were an inspiration for the reason why we're doing this.
Yeah, me whining about the young people as an old man. These young people are just such ingrates. They don't care about us old musical theater people anymore. They don't want to learn anything.
No, not at all. Not at all. So anyway, regardless, thank you for doing this. Thank you for taking the time. We're so grateful. And like I said, you're our first virtual episode, which is pretty exciting.
It's exciting. I'm happy and proud to be on the show. I love the virtual apps. I was telling you I use Riverside for the virtual episodes of my podcast and other podcasts.
Yeah.
So it's good stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So we start the podcast. I should start with my intro. I never did. So welcome to another episode of I Want to Be Like You with Elbi Cespedes. Today, I want to be like Aaron Lazar, which is something I've been saying is in particular for the last 5 years, because when I was in college, I just decided to go down the rep of the things you've done and add What Say You, Meg to my book. Add Just a Kiss Apart from Gentlemen Prefer Blondes to my book. Look at In Praise of Women. Add that to it. It's just like, oh, Aaron Lazar did it. I'll steal that.
Oh, that's very kind of you. And those are great songs, and I miss being able to sing them. I could probably sing pieces of those things now.
Yeah.
But man, I mean, especially the Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, we got to do that recording with Julie Stein's widow.
Oh, really?
And what was it, like a 30-piece, big band under the baton of Maestro Rob. I mean, that recording was great, man.
And it's one of the, it's like, it's so, that show is so niche. I mean, not many people know it at all. And that song, just
Megan Hilty crushed it. We had such a good time. Rachel York, my old friend Rachel, and I got to play opposite each other. And I mean, Clark Thorell and my boy Steve. And I mean, man, Bunt Rock and I go way back. So it was a good time. We had a really good time.
So cool. Love it. So we start the podcast with the same question every time. And it is, who was your I Want to Be Like You when you were a kid?
I mean, my Broadway I Want to Be Like You was like Burke Moses on the Beauty and the Beast soundtrack. Brian Stokes Mitchell, Doug Sills, Mark Kudish, Brian Darcy James. Those were like my guys, Colm Wilkinson and Anthony Warlow. Probably Anthony Warlow was like vocally. It was like if I could sing like that guy. And you guys don't even know who that is, do you?
No, I don't. Do you?
Push hang up right now. This podcast is over, dude. It is over. In just a mere 20 years, Anthony Warlow is now, people don't know. Dude, you got to look up everything that Anthony Warlow ever sang. He's the greatest, highest baritone in the history of like legit musical theater baritones. Yeah.
So you knew him growing up?
I just knew recordings, right? I mean, we didn't have the internet. We had CDs. So I would just burn out Broadway CDs and cast albums. And I was like, I want to sing like that.
Right. Were you a theater kid growing up?
No. I mean, I started doing musicals in high school, and I played the leads and stuff, but I wasn't like a theater kid. Like I did it for fun. I went to college to be a doctor or pre-med. I just I didn't think I was going to do it, but I loved doing it. And I guess I was good at it. But as far as being a theater kid, no, I was probably a movie kid. Like I loved movies. And I loved performing and creating, but it wasn't necessarily limited to the theater.
Yeah. So you grew up in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, right?
I did.
Were you coming to New York often to see shows or anything like that?
I was coming to New York like once a year. My dad, would schlep us into the city after working all day, and we'd sit on the turnpike for 2 hours and sit in traffic at the Lincoln Tunnel, and then, he'd fall asleep, and then we'd go home. So I don't really remember. I remember a couple shows that I saw, but Broadway and New York were never like easy. It was like, like when I moved to New York after grad school, it was fraught with this whole like, oh my God, my whole family's like, you're moving to New York. That place is crazy. Right. And of course I discovered very quickly that it was extraordinary, but my impression of it as a kid was kind of, limited by the stress of the family trips to the city.
Right. Yeah, of course. So you were going to college for pre-med originally, right?
Yeah.
What did your parents, like, how come?
Why was I studying pre-med?
Well, I mean, theater seems like such a reliable option, whereas pre-med.
Touche. Yeah, I mean, no, my the I Want to Be Like You was my uncle. He was a doctor. Yeah. And, they had the beach house and the Aruba timeshare and the whole thing. And I was like, this is the life. My dad's working his ass off in construction. my uncle's driving me down the shore in a Cadillac, so I should probably do that. Like I just thought that's, so I started
Right.
shadowing doctors and I enjoyed it. I watched surgeries while I was in high school. I was like,
Oh, wow.
I'll do that. That's going to be great. So I thought that's what I was going to do. Obviously, so much has changed about, what I value now.
Yeah.
Not that those things are not wonderful, but they're not, what I've come to fully embody and understand as being success. It's not my definition
Yeah.
of success anymore.
Right. What would you say your definition of success is now then?
It's a good question. I would say the ability to love oneself, the ability to love oneself freely, without limitation, and the curiosity to expand one's consciousness to maximize the potential of your soul. It's pretty heady stuff, I think. What's a simpler way to say it? I just believe that the whole other code, money, success, relationship success, job success, like that's all great. Like abundance is abundance, but if you're emotionally, mentally, and spiritually void, if you're not balanced, if you're not healthy, if you live in a lot of fear with a lot of doubt and a lot of uncertainty about yourself and your life, it doesn't matter what toys you have. None of them will be enough. None of them will be enough anyway, because when you have true joy, you don't need to chase pleasure, so the ability to sit in a chair, which is what I have to do all day now, and just be happy is success to me, right? It's like, it's an ability to, maybe a better definition of it is an appreciation of one's own divine nature, and the expansion of that, no matter what adversity you face.
Oh, yeah. Interesting.
And that's what's so interesting about the industry of theater, is that what I found is to either write or to perform a piece, you have to have sort of that first part of what you were saying, the curiosity, the love for yourself. And when it starts bleeding into something a little more expedient, whether it's, money or whatever it is, especially on the writing side, we start to say, well, maybe that was an opt-out to gain a bigger audience for some career move. And it starts to become really clear that that's what they were defining as success in that way.
Sure. I mean, I think I would ask you guys the question, which is like, do you guys have dreams? Like, what's your dream, Lily? What's your current dream that you're working on right now?
You want to go first?
Sure. Current dream is to write 14 musicals in the next decade.
Okay. And what's yours, Elbi?
I think my current dream is to be able to work in this industry, do the work that I love, which is like theater and performing, and also have a family.
Right.
And be able to build a personal life and have those live in tandem.
Great. So, I've spent the last 4.5 years sort of learning about consciousness-driven transformation. So in the regard of the things that we want and the dreams that we have, right? There's a reason why my entire platform is called Impossible Dream, and why my entire mission right now in life, from album to podcast to speaking platforms, is to help people live their impossible, because most people don't know how, because we're not taught. So you've got these dreams, and everybody has their own dreams, right? Unique to whatever your soul is here to explore while it gets to, live this trip around the earth in that body that you've got. And then you've got the things in the way. So imagine that your dream is a frequency, right? And let's say it's pure. Let's say It's not your mom's dream. It's not your dad's dream. It's your pure, authentic soul vibration, which is like, I want to write 14 musicals. I would challenge you on that, Christian. We'll go back to that in a second. And I want to, have a successful career and have a family. Well, there's the frequency of that you are broadcasting out into life, which is a quantum field, right? It's energy everywhere, infinite creative source energy. Then there's the interference of that frequency that you're broadcasting. There's interference of the signal. And the interference is, well, I don't know if I can do that. Oh, no, I can't do that because I'm this. Oh, I'll never do that because they told me this. No, it just doesn't work that way. So there's no way. So you start to take the purity of the frequency of the thing, and you start to water down the vibration of the wave. If you imagine like a frequency wave, right? And a pure wave, right, will line up with exactly what it is that you want, and you will attract that thing into your experience if you are open to receiving it. But as soon as you start to dilute the wave with fear, doubt, lack of trust, you start to confuse the quantum reality, which is that, reality comes to you based on what you believe and perceive to be possible. So let's start with you, Elbi. Like, I wanted the same thing. I wanted a successful Broadway career. And then I would say, but I also want a family. And so from as early as that dream started, I muddied the waters so much with a limited belief system that having a successful career and having a healthy, successful family were mutually exclusive. And so that it was inherently then going to be challenging or difficult to do both. Why? Because somebody else told me that it would be hard? Because traditionally theater people don't make me, you could come up with a zillion reasons. Well, the business doesn't, it's hard to support yourself and it's this and it's that. And then your parents get involved and they give you 10 more other reasons to tell you why it's going to be hard. And you go, oh, well, I guess they said it's going to be hard. I'm going to do it anyway. Right. And then you create this narrative, this hero's journey for yourself. So ALS, right? I'm going to beat ALS. And the world goes, no, you're not. And I go, yes, I am. And so I stop listening to the world entirely. Didn't discuss it with my kids, didn't discuss it with anybody really until I spent a year and a half clarifying my frequency on my journey of what I thought was possible for myself so that I could create for myself the life that I want to live despite the adversity that I'm facing. So I throw that out there because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether it's ALS or whatever you're working on or whatever your impossible dream is. Reality is created by your inner frequency and vibration going out into the field and coming back. So the clearer you can get about what you are broadcasting from a mental, emotional, spiritual standpoint, do you really believe in that dream? Is that really what you want? And taking the time, to then get out of your head. Life is not cerebral. And go, yeah, it is. And then do your thing, man. Do your thing. Find the authentic you and blast it. Blast it. I feel like your generation is really doing that in a way, which goes back to my whole, these kids don't want to listen to what old theater guy has to say. Because they're like, we're good, dude. We're doing it our way. We don't need you. I think there's a balance, but does any of that make sense?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I think that the thing that creeps into my brain a lot, and I wonder if you feel the same way with your impossible dream, is the time, right? It's like, I think that being, if there's ever a frequency that's interfering, it would be the frequency or doubt. If there's any doubt, it would be this time crunch that, in some cases feels like put on us, and in some cases is literal. You know what I mean? And so it feels like this thing that's constantly standing in your way and going, well, you only have this amount of time to do something. Do you feel that way?
Yeah. So again, even time is bendable to your perception of time. So what do I mean by that? You know, you could be you know, what does Sadhguru say about it? He says, like, you know, you're healthy and you're bored, and it's like, I got time, and take it forever to get to the thing. But as soon as you're sick and whatever, time's flying, time's moving so fast, and oh my God, I don't have enough time. It's all a perception. So you get to create the narrative around time. I mean, I didn't even share diagnosis with the public. It hasn't even been 2 years, and I have done more in 2 years than I probably did in the decade prior, if not all 20 years of my career, right? How's that possible? Time has expanded because I'm in the present moment, and I am in joy in the present moment for the most part, despite whatever challenges I face. Life is not without challenge, but if all you focus on is the challenge, right? We get to choose every minute of our life, every moment. You have free will. What do you want to do in the moment? How do you want to be in the moment? And the more you practice the way that you really want to be. So, Christian, let's go back to your 14 musicals. So, if you did a quick 5-minute visualization exercise of imagining the Christian that you will be when all 14 musicals over the next 10 years have been written, right? And you imagine that guy and what you feel like and what your life is like and what you're surrounded by and all the things, then what's the difference between that guy who's you in some other multiverse, right? And you right now, and then eliminate the gap by being that guy right now and practicing that guy right now.
Right.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And, you know, I don't know that it takes 14 musicals and 10 years. Maybe it does for you. You know, maybe it means something a little bit different. But, you know, I think what I'm trying to get across is like, you know, you get to co-create your life, and it happens right now in this moment. It doesn't happen in the past or the future. They don't exist. So in this moment, anything is possible. I don't care whether you've got ALS or you just, you know, you want to write musicals or be an act, like anything is possible in this moment. And so if you're stuck in a moment that's like limited and full of doubt and full of fear and full of this or whatever, it's like, no, you're projecting onto a timeline that is not even happening right now.
Right.
For sure. In terms of it being, and it's kind of similar to what I said before, but it goes along with the same vision, where when you're doing it when the goal, when the dream in the first place is predicated on something that's from, I mean, maybe spiritually speaking, your soul, but like you said, the person who you'd like to be, the person who you can be right now. That's what can create these moments of champions. I mean, people like, for example, Michael Jordan, something like that, where these people, you go, how did they do that? Those moments seem to come from that, from my experience.
I'd agree with that. I mean, I also just think it's not, you know, I don't often get to talk about this stuff with guys your age. So I appreciate the conversation, right? Because I'm curious as to how best to be a sort of a coach, you know, a quantum coach, if you will, for, you know, I talk to plenty of people my age about it, right? Once you start getting into your 40s, shit starts happening, you know, good and bad. But for guys your age, you know, it's like, okay, well, how do we relate and all connect on this? You know, I think what I've learned is every soul is here to explore certain themes, and there's a soul blueprint, and we make soul contracts. And you know, if you've got an authentic interest in writing musicals, that's because that's what your soul wants to do, and so go do it, right? But don't put up. I think where it started to go wrong for me is when I started to lose belief in myself and my dreams and put my faith in what other people had to say or what the business had to say or this. like it's an exhausting waste of time. Living life is way simpler. And Michael Jordan played basketball, and he loved basketball. I mean, Kobe, when they asked Kobe, like, what's the number one secret to be, he just said love of the game. Like when you really love something and you don't let anybody tell you otherwise, you're going to live and die by that sword, so to speak, good and bad, but you're going to love it because it's what you do. And when you stop loving it because a bunch of people told you you're this or you're not that, or you started to believe this about yourself, it's like, that's when the well gets poisoned. And I've spent the last 4 or 5 years, cleaning the well and starting it over and pouring a whole new fresh water source in there and starting over, recreating my entire life, really. But to go back to a time when I was your age and it was pure, there's nothing in the way. There's if you don't have the wife, you don't have the kids yet, you don't have the responsibilities, there's nothing in the way, and you get to actually build them in a way that's the way you want it to be. It doesn't mean it's going to be without challenge, but it certainly doesn't mean you need to overlay a stress onto your life going that, well, I'm going to be able to have a successful career, but it's going to make having a family life hard. Why? Don't do that because somebody told you that. There's a book called Cured by Jeff Rediger about spontaneous remissions. And he like realized that this whole stat that, you would be in medical school and they would say a spontaneous remission isn't really a thing. They happen like 1 in 100,000. And he realized that was all just myth and lore, and that the actual numbers were more like 3,500 times that. But that one doctor said to another doctor in a hallway, spontaneous remissions, and it just passed around. And then it becomes lore to, med students and residents. And the next thing you know, people accept it as real. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, there was something similar I saw. This study they were doing with people that they told them, you're going to walk into an interview, a job interview, hypothetically, and you're going to have a scar. We're going to paint a scar on your face. And basically the goal of the interview is going to be, you go in there, and if the interviewer, you basically tell us if the interviewer was acknowledging the scar, even if they're not saying it, you feel like maybe you didn't get the job or whatever it is, like you were being judged. And what they did is right before they went into the interview, they're like, listen, let's just touch you up really quick. And then after, and most people said that the interviewer was acknowledging the scar in subtle ways or judging them. And when they did the touch up, they took off the scar. So there was never a scar there, and it was just perception.
I love that because, think about being disabled. You can't see it. I'm in a wheelchair right now. I was jacked and in the best shape of my life at 45 when this started, and like had always prided myself since I was 13 years old being in the gym. And, next thing I know, I'm in a wheelchair and, I lose all this muscle and you can see all my bones. And I got people waiting on me and having to do everything for me. And, it's a whole different ballgame if I go out into public and project that I'm going to be judged for being disabled. Versus I'm going to go out into public my way. Which is why when I first talked about what was going on and people said, oh, this is so horrible and you could die and we want to pray for you. I was like, I don't think I'm going to die. I appreciate your prayers. And if by prayer you mean imagine me 100% and fill that vision with your magic and your love, that's the way I'd prefer you to pray for me, as opposed to pity me and worry about me and be scared about me. That doesn't help me get better. So like, what are you doing with your energy and how are you focusing it? And my point is that I've never been judged, even at airports where travel is a real pain in the ass for disabled people, especially. I've never been judged, even when I've felt vulnerable and small and, I've been more, I don't know, respected than I've ever been before, even when I was walking around, looking like a Greek god. Like we have it all backwards, guys. Like we have it all backwards. It's not the outside, whether it's your body or your life that's happening on the outside, it all comes from your state on the inside.
Yeah. Yeah. How much more, I think, through this, how much more, what are you doing to focus your energy? Like, what does that mean to you in the sense of like, what are the practices? What are you taking? I've watched a lot of your stuff when you talked about this impossible dream and you talked about going for it initially, right? And I think two things comes with that is that one, before, like you mentioned, before you came out publicly to talk about it, you made the decision to come out publicly and talk about it. And you made the decision knowing that you were going to take this, right? Take this upon yourself, this impossible dream. So now that you've done that and you've done that publicly and you've existed under this for the last couple of years, how are you focusing your energy and what are you doing exactly to, attain that impossible dream?
A great question. I'm doing a lot less than I was doing. I used to think that I had to effort everything.
Okay.
I prided myself on being the hardest working unemployed actor that you'd ever known. You know what I mean? Like, my definition of success or my value as a man, as a provider, was outside of myself. It wasn't in the character and the soul and the love and the heart and the mind and that I had to bring. It was in the how many Broadway shows and how much money and what kind of providing can I do and how much and what kind of vacations can we go, and if I wasn't doing that at a highest level, I devalued myself. I felt, like I was a failure. When transforming myself in the first couple of years of this healing journey, it super was like, I'm going to do everything I can to heal everything about myself, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, believing the body will follow once I clear up. It's like if you believe the body is the hardware, you got to change the software, right? You've got to completely change the operating system in order to get the hardware to run the way you want it to run. But about 9 months ago, I just surrendered. I surrendered to what I do now, which surrender does not mean capitulate. It means I allowed myself to appreciate that life, I call life and God the same thing. Life knows better for me than I could even know for me. I have a soul whisper. I have a soul, it's the reason why Groban and I sing Let Your Soul Be Your Pilot on my album. My soul is my pilot and it's telling me I'm going to heal. I'm healing, whatever. That's been there from day one of diagnosis. But in the meantime, the how and when are not up to me. They're up to God. They're up to life. And so how do I enjoy the hell out of my life while I'm doing that? How do you not just sit around and wait, like a farmer waiting for the corn to grow, it's not fun. It's exhausting, right? When you're like, you want something to happen so badly and so what do? I trust more that life knows what it's doing. I trust more that God and life will bring to me the people and the places and the things that I need to get me to where I want to be. I trust that that's already happened in all of the miracles that have happened to me out of nowhere. It's the same as me ending up on your podcast, guys. That doesn't happen. Bradley Dean hops on it, of all people, my old buddy Bradley, and now I'm here, but Elbi, you're telling me that you've been, sort of thinking about this and dreaming it up for a long time, but you didn't know how it was going to happen.
No.
So, what do I do now? I try and stay in the flow of life. I try and keep myself in the river of openness, open-heartedness, and open possibility. I try and stay in the river of receiving instead of feeling like I got to hustle, grind, and I got all of this chaos going on that keeps me missing what's happening right in front of me, which is just infinite creative life flowing my way. So how do I line up with it?
Does that require you guys?
No, go for it.
Does that, and really how much humbleness does that require? To be able to let yourself receive.
I mean, I think I've been humbled, man. I think it's an interesting contradiction. It might seem to some people, but I no longer see it as a contradiction. There's the humility of recognizing that life knows way more than you. As Michael Singer says in the Surrender Experiment, life's been around on planet Earth for billions of years before human DNA. It doesn't need human DNA to tell it what to do. Life evolves. Life happens. So there's the humility to allow that to be true. And then there is what some people would call arrogance, to recognize that you are God. To go, what? I'm God? No, I'm not. God's out there. I was raised in a synagogue or church, and God's out there. Jesus Christ is whatever. And it's like, no, you are God in the same way that Hamlet is a piece of Shakespeare. It doesn't mean you're Shakespeare, but it means you got a piece of him in there. And if you recognize your own divinity, right, then you are humble enough to know that we are all the same, because the divinity in each of you guys and me is the same. It's the same in the people in my house right now. It's the same in the homeless guy on the street. It's the same. We're all a God's part. Nobody wins. It's one vast ocean of oneness. And when you awaken to that, all the rest of this petty political or, whatever the dogma is that divides people, separates people, it's nonsense. It's nonsense. But, sometimes the only way people like to learn is through hardship and pain and suffering. And that's what souls are here. I mean, shit, I wish I could have learned all this without ALS. That's what I say. I wish I could have learned it without ALS. Maybe you can. And I say that to audiences,
How much do you think, though, before the transformative experience that you've been having over the last couple of years, what do you think from your past, from theater, from these things that you were aspiring toward, what do you think that has done for you? How do you think that has informed what you're doing now?
Oh man, I mean, of a lot of people with ALS lose their voice. Why do I still have mine? A lot of people with ALS cannot be a voice for elevated consciousness. Why do I have an audience? A lot of people, whether it's ALS or any terrible crisis in life, don't have the infinite network of love and support from celebrities to new friends like you guys that I have. How did I have that? I built a reputation for myself that I didn't know was ever going to be. Do you know what I'm saying? This is what I'm saying. Life knows way better than we do. And so at some point you have to surrender, you have to trust, but you get to create the narrative. So you get to say, I want to be this kind of a Broadway star or whatever. You have no idea, Elbi. Have you done a Broadway show?
No.
Right. You might never, but 3 months after you think, oh God, I gave it your podcast gets bought for $10 million and you become the next, you don't know what you're totally meant for, but you go with your gut and you listen to your soul and you go for it. And then you stay open to whatever is possible to happen. And I think where I made a mistake was when I started to tell life, I don't want to do it your way. I want it to go my way. I don't want, and yet I could never control it. So I'd be in a show and I think that would be the show and it would close in 3 months. And, we'd be up against it with bills at home or whatever it was. And I'd get super scared about money and frustrated. And I would listen to what certain people around me were saying about, well, you should probably quit and you should go work for your dad, or you should get this. You should, like, are you kidding me? I look back at it now and go, Aaron Lazar, man, with all the talent that I have and everything that I could bring, I was that distraught about going to work for my dad and quitting and giving up because I was going to let other people. And I'm not saying that that's not a valid path. If you're done, you're done. If you don't enjoy it anymore. But like when I stopped believing in myself and started to create a narrative around this whole thing of, oh, maybe it's not possible. Maybe I'm not ever going to be XYZ. Maybe I won't. Well, then, yeah, that's the life I got. The roles got smaller. The money got tighter. Do you know what I'm saying? I created that. I'm not saying alone. I did it with life, but life responds to you. Anyway, these are just little secrets of how to play the game.
Yeah.
They're shifts that you can make in your consciousness, in your awareness, that allow you to not be a victim of the game,
Right.
but to play the game. They allow you to be Neo in the Matrix.
Yeah.
There is no spoon that you need to try and bend. You are the spoon. It took me until 49 years old and going through all this to understand what that even means.
Well, funny enough, I feel that way with the musicals in the first place. It's funny that was the one I picked with The Dream, because that's exactly what I feel, as if they're all already there. It's just time to put it into the system, whether it is put it into spiritually speaking or metaphysically speaking, put it into life, but then also put it into paper, and then have, once you get a reading done, then there's a reading, then there's and then that starts to create its own subsects of branches of its own life.
Yeah, I'm going to give you the 4 or 5 keys to life, or what does he call them? This guy Daryl Anka, what does he call them? The maybe guidelines. Number 1, follow your passion and excitement to whatever extent you can, as far as you can take it, with whatever resources you have available to you, as long as you can do so with integrity. Number 2, detach from all expectation or insistence on a specific outcome. Number 3, stay positive. And number 4, stay in the moment. So simple, right?
Yeah.
Sounds
so simple. Yeah. Well, how much of, because here's the thing, right? It's like there are times where I think I can believe in something and I can say that, okay, well, this is what I'm trying to attain. I know that I'll attain it, right? I know I'll get it. I don't necessarily doubt whether or not it's going to happen. But I think that if I'm not constantly working toward it, it's the idea that, we've discussed this, is like passively waiting versus actively waiting. What am I'm waiting for my moment to come. I'm waiting for something to happen. I'm waiting for whatever, but I'm not sitting back and, I'm not sitting on my couch and just sitting there and saying it'll come. I'm trying to make it happen and simultaneously waiting for it to happen. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm with you right there. I asked myself the same questions for eons. It was like, I'm not good at sitting around playing video games, but there's only so many times I can audition and be like, what am I supposed to do, and try and produce other stuff and generate something and the whole thing. And, I just go back to those guidelines. If what you are doing is pursuing what excites you the most, to whatever extent you can, with whatever resources you have available to you, as long as you're doing so with integrity, and then you are detaching from an insistence on an outcome. So let's say I want to be a Broadway star. Okay, well, pursuing that, if it excites you and you're passionate about it, and you can do it with integrity, which means, what is integrity? Well, I don't know. Some director says, sleep with me, dude, and I'll give you the job. Is that integrity? Maybe for some people. For me, it wouldn't have been. So I would have been like, if I knew these guidelines back then, and not saying I slept my way at the top, but I would have been like, no, that's not, that's not, it's like saying, well, what I love doing the most is drugs. That excites me the most. Well, it's not integrity. It's not good for you. It's not healing. So it's not healthy. So, if what you can do in the moment, Elbi, is sit on a sofa and watch a movie, because you've already done the work that day, or there is no work to do that way. Maybe the work is literally that. The work is just enjoying your life. So it's asking yourself moment to moment, what excites me the most? Meaning, if in this moment I have a choice between sitting on the sofa and watching a movie or stressing out about an audition, well, if you've already worked the audition, then maybe you don't need to overwork it, and you need to change the narrative around what you need to do to get a job. Does that make sense? And maybe all you need to do is relax that night and watch a freaking movie. Like, I have to tell myself that all the time. Sometimes I go, what's more exciting? Me taking another business call, right, about whatever project it is that I'm working on, or taking a nap. And if the nap feels more exciting, I'm not getting on the phone, because I'm listening now to an intuition that's connected to something. Your frequency around this whole thing, your energy around the whole thing is not going to be what anybody else tells you. It's going to come from deeply within you, and you're going to have to start to learn to read your own emotional GPS and listen to it. And that just comes with practice, you know? And I'm not saying that it's not going to take hard work and busting your ass. I don't know. You ever like have a friend who like everything just kind of goes their way, and like I just started to look at life like that and go, who are the most positive people that I know? Who are the most like happy people and smiley people, and are they really happy, and is it just kind of a front, and are they a mess? Like, who is a genuinely happy person? Who lives a life that seems genuinely great all across the board? And what's the difference between me and that? And I started to then create for myself this reality that was like, okay, Aaron, here's where you had gotten energetically. Here's the frequency I was putting out into the world, and here's the frequency I want to put out into the world. And most of it, honestly, all comes back to love. It really comes back to love. If you can just open your heart and love yourself as much as possible, blast your light without caring what anybody else thinks, as long as you can, you're doing it with integrity, and stay open to whatever life has in store for you. You might start writing that musical, Christian, and meet, somebody who's going to take you. And the next thing you know, you're writing musicals on the other side of the world, but you never plan on being there. But like, you just have no idea. So stay open to pursuing your thing, but detach from a specific outcome and enjoy the ride.
Yeah, that's true. And it's funny because almost this is where it really gets meta for me. Almost as actors, storytellers of any kind, we're also, most of us started, if not all of us started, as audience members that were drawn to these people, and now we're mimicking them. Now we're embodying them. And how are you going to embody them to that extent without having some sort of, even at least the imagination of that experience, right? Some like, for like Meisner or whatever it is, maybe not the exact experience, but to have at least the imagination of it. And so to have experienced maybe that movie, or that could also serendipitously help the acting, let alone, I mean, experiences in my life that I've altered or that have worked for these scripts. I said, well, I don't think that would, and then somehow it just clicks and you go, good thing I was open. Good thing I didn't just follow the schedule.
Yeah. Well, I wonder, how much of it do you feel then, how much of it, what I'm trying to say is like the things that you don't want to do, but you have to do, the things that don't necessarily excite you, but you've got to do them. How much of that is in play with all of this?
Well, give me an example. You talking about you or me?
I mean, either. Like, there's some times where it's like, well, I don't want to necessarily work the part-time job that I have right now that I'm using really to save money, really to build this thing. I don't really want, I like it enough. I'm not doing something I hate, but I'm not necessarily sure that this is, if I had all the money in the world, that this is the thing that I would be doing, right? If I had the dream, I probably wouldn't be doing this thing, but it is helping me attain the dream,
When I talk about the guy that you want to be, if you're talking about the guy who has all the money in the world, it's not what he has, it's who he is. You don't attract in life what you want. You manifest and attract and create who you are. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So So the job that you don't necessarily want to do is affording you to do what you do want to do. And it's also not it's exemplary of who you are. So take the pressure off and stop judging yourself for it.
Right.
Like I used to do, which was like, well, I can't go be a waiter. I mean, I was a personal trainer and I had been a waiter already. I was like, I'm never going to wait tables because that means I'm a failure. Like, what? Like, so much pressure, so much limitation, so much of a story around that was like, I'm better than, I'm better than, I'm better than. It's like, no, dude. First of all, again, there's no such thing as a time pressure cooker because you get to create your perception of that time. So if you don't do what I did, which is like, I better have X amount of dollars by the time I'm 30, or I can't have kids and I can't. If you meet the woman that you're going to have kids with, or the guy you want to have kids with, whatever it is, and you're ready to have kids, you're going to have kids, and you're never going to have all the money that you want and the purpose. Maybe you will. You don't know. You know what I mean? You're going to live life. It's going to happen. So stressing between now and then about time and again, if the job affords you to be able to do the thing that excites you the most, then it's just part of the thing. It's like going to the gym for a role. The guy says that the casting director's like, we're going to give him the part, but he's got to have 17-inch biceps. All right, well, I don't want to go do the curls, but I need 17-inch biceps. This will get me the biceps. So you're going to go do the curls, but it doesn't mean you have to like it. David Goggins says do something that truly sucks every day. Because the mind, so much of this too, we're talking about some quantum field stuff today, and we're talking about mindset and the power of the mind. And your mind will either work for you or against you like a wild Mustang. This is Sadhguru, this is Joe Dispenza, this is, so you get to be the rider. The horse is going to try and buck you off all the time. Horse is going to try and carry around the old programming of, Elbi, don't do this job. This sucks, man. What are you doing? What do you do? How are you getting any closer to that whole spin, dude? It's noise.
Right.
It's like as soon as you get clear and go, no, this job, I'm going to do this job right now because it allows me to do the thing I really love, and I'm not going to overthink it and try and be cerebral about it. And if I could get a better job, God, I really love doing this, and yeah, I'd like a better job. And so I'm going to stay open to the possibility of a different job or a better job.
Yeah.
Don't torture yourself in some job that sucks just out of principle.
Yeah.
Am I making sense?
Yeah. No. Yeah. Yeah. Because that's the that I think that's the thing that you're constantly toying with is like, how much do I not want to do this? Right? Am I putting myself in a position where, because in certain respects, there are times where you think to yourself, I could go out and I could try to do something that I don't like, that I know might help a certain. This is like the idea, right? It's like because we're talking about those things being mutually exclusive in terms of like the thing that I mentioned, my impossible dream, the having a family and the theater thing, right? And you talked about how you went through the same thing. Is like, well, I feel like one is going to fuel one thing and maybe not the other thing. Well, I feel like if I'm going to these auditions, well, that's going to fuel this thing, but I don't know if that's going to come back to me. You know what I mean? It's like constantly grappling with these two things. But the idea, that's why I appreciate the idea of those things not being mutually exclusive, saying everything I do is fueling both of those things.
Right. But do you see how you get to decide that? Meaning you get to change the paradigm in which you're limiting yourself as to what's possible. You don't have to. You could literally say, I tell this story where I was in an acting class doing a, what's the name of this playwright? Doing a scene by this great playwright where everything's kind of folky and quiet and nice and easy breezy. And it's in the South, man. And it was just relaxing. And it was a scene with a girl, and literally the stage direction is like, they sit on a bench. And I start the scene for my acting teacher. This is in New York with my acting teacher, Joan Rosenfels. And I'm standing over towards the side of the room, and the girl's sitting on the bench. And we start doing the scene. I see Joan looking at me like. Then she goes, "Stop, Aaron, stop. What are you doing? What are you doing?" I said, what do you mean? I'm doing the scene. She said, why are you standing over there? She said, it says right here in the stage directions, they sit on a bench. Oh my God. Sorry. Did you hear that scream?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
My caregiver, Jordan, just scared the shit out of me. I'm like, is that good or bad? I think it's good. Now she's laughing. So Joan's like, what are you doing? Why are you standing over there? It says right here in the stage directions, they sit on a bench. I said, yeah, but that's too easy. I wanted to make the scene harder. Don't make it harder, Elbi.
Yeah.
Don't make it harder. Don't make life harder. Life's going to be hard enough. So create for yourself your dream paradigm of what this is. If you want the family and the career and the auditions help the thing, but take away from you socializing or spending time with your girlfriend or whatever, you need to find a way to communicate with that person. Listen, this is what I feel like I need to do and focus on right now. And I need you to love and support me for that. And I'll do the same for you. And that's where real love and respect comes from, not from the person who's going to go, I'll love you when you're on Broadway, or, you know what I'm saying? Like, you get to create the thing. It's like, I went through a terrible breakup a year and a half ago that wasn't terrible because I had this conscious awareness that I was like, I was dreading this breakup. I was dreading the breakup because breakups are so painful and breakups are so hard and breakups are so awful. And for me, breakups are so destabilizing since my divorce, and they give me so much anxiety and the whole thing. And I just had a light bulb go off one day and I went, what if this breakup doesn't have to be awful? What if it can be like not awful? Like, what if it could be something else? And to her credit and mine, like, you know, she ended up thanking me, going, I'm so grateful that you came into this conversation with an open mind that like this wasn't going to be terrible. And do you know what I'm saying? Does the analogy make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah. No, it totally does.
It's opening up ourselves to things being possible, that we've already accepted a different paradigm for something and accepted that as a limitation.
Right.
Well, you know, ALS is not curable. Who said that? Well, that's just that's what it is. Well, then what about alsreversals.org, run by Dr. Rick Bedlack at Duke University? Oh, well, you know, like.
Well, I was going to ask you. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
I was going to ask you, you know, like how much of it too is inspired like this. I've read this. I heard you say on your podcast that your mom dealt with leukemia, and that was something that, I mean, that in and of itself feels like some sort of stamp of something, right? Cancer tends to feel like that, but she healed herself through from what I understand, at least, she healed herself from a life change.
Yeah. And a lot of people are like, oh, don't talk about that. You can't say that your mother cured herself of cancer with nutrition. Why not? She did. Like, she literally did. And you can say whatever you believe is possible.
Yeah.
So I feel like one of the things I'm most passionate about is talking to people to inspire other people to know how much more is possible, to empower other people, to empower themselves. Somebody wrote about me on Instagram recently, Aaron, thank you so much. You do so much to heal other people. And I wrote back, I do not. I help other people heal themselves.
Mm-hmm. How much of that situation do you think inspired you to do this? How much do you think that gave you some sort of I don't know, what's the word? Like, you know, how much of it gave you confidence to do what you're doing now?
Well, if you're asking whether or not like the belief that we can do hard things, or we can do things that other people might not believe they can do, is genetic, you know, or was experiential, it's in there. It's in the soup somewhere. Yeah. All I can say is that as soon as I got my head straight, you know, you get the diagnosis, and you know, I was almost like those paddles they put on people's hearts. It was like, and I was back into my life. And I was able to look at the way I'd been living for a decade plus and go, Jesus Christ, that's exhausting. And that's so full of fear in the system. And then there was a very clear voice within that was like, I got this. I got it. I don't know how. I don't know how. And then it's my job, right? If that's what I want, to create for myself an experience that supports me living that dream. Which means, hey, did you watch that documentary on that guy with ALS? No, I did not. Why? Don't you want to? No, I don't. It doesn't feel like it's healing for me to do that. Hey, did you read that book about that guy that passed away from ALS? No, I did not. Why not? Because it's not healing for me to do that.
Right.
You know, like every choice I made and continue to make every moment of my day while living with significant challenge is in the face of how could this be possible? How is this going to turn around? You know, how are my toes going to move again? You know, how am I going to walk again? How am I going to, you know, shower myself again? Like all of that stuff every day. And I go, I don't know, but here's what I'm passionate and most excited about is doing it.
Yeah.
And if like you want to talk about an analogy, Elbi, you have the job you don't like. I've got caregivers that need to do everything for me. You know, I have no privacy. Very little to no privacy. You know what I mean? So I could sit there and go, I hate this. Or I could adapt and go, well, if what I still find most exciting is healing, if that's still the dream that I have and what I most believe in, as opposed to just dying, then what I'm going to do is put up with the shit that I don't want to deal with and just go, it's part of the game right now, man. But I'm going where I'm going. You know what I'm saying?
And believing that these things that you're doing that you don't want to be doing are actually fueling that.
And sometimes also, I don't have a choice. You know, whether it's fueling it or not, it's like, it's just a chapter. It's a chapter in this book or a chapter in my life of healing, which is like, all right, this is the chapter where what lessons am I supposed to learn here? Well, it's to allow other people to help me.
Yeah.
It's empathy for people that can't help themselves. It's a soul empathy to look at people now and have no idea what they're going through. To see people in wheelchairs and have a whole different idea of, you know, and still go, you know, okay, like again, I don't want to I don't want to like mistake this entire conversation for a cerebral exercise. Like that's the opposite of what I'm trying to do.
Right.
I'm trying to essentially lay out the wisdom that allows you to live a less cerebral, less overthought, overwrought life. But in order to do that, you gotta understand a couple of the guidelines.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting that almost what I'm noticing, and that's something I've noticed in my life a lot, whether it's in, you know, things that, you know, stories or big moments, whether in theater or the freaking Bible, where it's like these pillars of that haven't been even proven wrong, like effort, like trying. It's almost to think that being put in a situation like this, it reminds me of the book of Job a little bit, where being put in a situation like this, the impossible dream is almost to even try, right? At least on my end of the table.
Say that last part again. It's to just
try.
Well, right. So first of all, you know, to try when your arms are too weary to reach the unreachable star, right? That's why The Impossible Dream is the song that became the anthem of my life. But do you guys have a phone in front of you?
Yeah.
Do you have ChatGPT?
Yeah.
Yeah. So go on chat and be like, give me the quantum spiritual interpretation of the story of Job.
Oops. Sorry.
And Christian, while he does that, what is the story of Job, right? The guy gets swallowed by a whale. Is that?
It's the guy who has a big family, X, Y, and Z, and they all pass away, and he has to deal with the grief of something that his friends are telling him it must have been something you did, and he's like, "But I didn't do anything." And
I'm talking about Jonah. Am I talking about Jonah? What's the story of the whale?
I think it is Joe. I'm not so
All right,
sure.
we'll do that one next. So Job is a guy who's experienced incredible tragedy and anguish, and God asks him to what?
Well, God basically tells him to repent, even though he didn't do anything wrong, to humble himself, even though there was nothing he could have done differently or X, Y, and Z. And basically, at least, I mean, there's so many different interpretations. But the reason why it reminded me of it was because it seems like the impossible dream, and the impossible dream for Job in that situation was just to have effort, to, in quotes, repent, to be humble, to be open.
All right, so I wanna take a stab at answering this before ChatGPT does. But Elbi, can you ask ChatGPT for the 50-word summary of the story of Job first, and read that?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let me see. Job, a righteous man, loses his wealth, family, and health when God permits Satan to test his faith. Despite suffering and questioning, Job refuses to curse God. After dialogues on justice and divine wisdom, God restores Job's fortunes, granting renewed prosperity and deeper understanding of God's purpose in human suffering.
Last sentence one more time.
After dialogues on justice and divine wisdom, God restores Job's fortunes, granting renewed prosperity and deeper understanding of God's purpose in human suffering.
Deeper understanding of God's purpose in human suffering?
Yeah.
Okay. So here's my breakdown of that story. Everybody in life, Job is an example of every single one of us in life when shit happens. And you can say, what did it say? That Satan did what?
When God permits Satan to test his faith.
So your faith is tested by Satan. Kabbalists say that Satan, the word Satan is either a Greek word or a Latin word it's Satan. It might even be a Hebrew word. And Satan simply means opponent. Now, when you use your mind to work against you, it is your opponent. Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is within. Well, hell is also there when your mind is driving you nuts, right? If you don't know how to make sense of life and you have anxiety, insomnia, depression, fear, living in survival, fight or flight, that's hell, man. So when that happens, what happens? Well, what happened for me was I questioned my faith. I questioned my belief in whether God was going to give me these dreams that I had of not only being a Broadway star, but then a TV star and then a movie star. And well, maybe it's all of my faith. And then what happened, dude? I got divorced, came out of nowhere. I was down to, I think I had 15 grand in the bank with 2 kids, as a 40-year-old man who had a mega career on Broadway and is now living in LA in a bachelor plan. Like I felt like Job, dude. And then what does it say? That so read the Satan part one more time.
When God permits.
Job, a righteous man, loses his wealth, family, and health when God permits Satan to test his faith.
All right, what's the next sentence?
Despite suffering and questioning, Job refuses to curse God.
Right. So the realization here is that in life, when shit happens, no matter what it is, right? If you realize that Satan is not something outside of yourself, right? You can't blame even if, God forbid, somebody gets murdered, right? These terrible things that happen to people, the Holocaust, these awful things. And you say, this is the worst that could happen to a human being, you know. Um, even then, how do you not lose faith? Right? How do you not curse God? Well, you can, but what good does it do? I got diagnosed with a disease that nobody ever wants to hear. You don't want to hear ALS come out of a doctor's mouth. Did I curse God? Did I curse my ex-wife? Did I curse, you know what I'm saying? Like, did I blame people? Ironically, I tried to blame myself and go, oh, I broke my nervous system because of how I lived through so much stress. But even that was, you know, I realized there's no one or nothing to blame here. It's life. Why does Aaron Lazar, why is that guy over there or that woman get ALS and not Aaron Lazar? Why? Because I have some inflated idea that I'm different or better than, we're all the same. So once you even out the playing field, we're all Job, right? And whoever the opponent is, whether it's some shit that happens to you or some shit that you do to yourself, you know, the definition of sinning is to miss the mark. So repenting is what? It's getting back into flow. Stop missing the mark. Stop creating a narrative for yourself that doesn't help you. Stop living in fear. Stop living in doubt. Stop missing the mark. Stop sinning and quote unquote repent. More faith, more trust, more surrender. God restores to you your abundance. When, how, not up to you. But Job is just, it's a story that provides that lesson. Does that make sense? And
Yeah.
I think if you were to ask ChatGPT what the spiritual and quantum meaning of Job is, it would say something along those lines.
Yeah, I could ask it. Hold on. I wrote briefly, what's the spiritual and quantum meaning of the story? And it says, spiritual meaning, Job's story teaches that faith, integrity, and trust in a larger wisdom can remain even when life appears unjust. It emphasizes surrender, humility, and the idea that human perspective is limited compared to divine order. Quantum, metaphorical meaning, if read symbolically rather than scientifically, Job reflects how reality includes unseen variables and interconnected forces beyond immediate perception, much like quantum uncertainty. It suggests that outcomes aren't linear or purely cause and effect, and that inner state, consciousness, intention, resilience influences how we navigate unpredictable experiences, even if it doesn't directly alter physical events.
Yeah. So, you know, I think I was somewhere in the ballpark there, you know.
Yeah,
and that's kind of how I look at life. The Bible has a zillion lessons, right? A zillion.
Yeah.
And I didn't know any of them because I was raised as a conservative Jew. But I got really interested in you know, in the books that I was reading that became salvation, because they teach basic wisdom for how to play the game of life and know that people have been doing this, guys, for thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah.
So it's empowering. I don't know.
Yeah.
Hopefully
Yeah,
I
no,
haven't
I hear you.
taken this thing so far off the
No,
I
you're
want to
totally
be like
good.
you podcast rails.
No, you're totally good, and we appreciate this. And we're just at around time now, so I want to ask you. We ask every guest this. We started the podcast by asking you who your I want to be like you as a kid was, and we want to ask you now, who is your I want to be like you now? And it could be anyone, it could be someone in your life, it could be whoever you'd like.
Yeah, I thought about that. It's funny because I knew you were going to ask me that, and I was like, "Oh, what am I going to say?" I mean, I want to be like Jesus in some respects, from a consciousness standpoint. I want to be able to be in so much faith and so much trust and so much alignment with the flow of life that I can also be like, you know, the other I want to be like is me fully healed and strong. And, you know, in order to receive that vibration, right, to the antenna, whatever frequency I'm putting out there. I want to be like whatever I need to be like in order to have that's everything to me. And I think just like you said, Christian, just trying, just in the face of a nightmare, daring to dream. You have no idea. I didn't see a keynote speaking career. I didn't see a Grammy nominated album. I didn't see a podcast with, Mark Cuban, or getting to talk to you guys. I didn't see an AI machine that I started a new company with Cubes to try and look at ALS and use AI to understand progression rates. Like, I didn't see any of this. God, I stayed in faith despite Job's tragedy, and God gave me all kinds of abundance. And so I get to keep dreaming. And that's the other thing, is to say to people, like, you to give people the hope and the possibility that no matter what their impossible is, here's some hope.
Right.
Keep dreaming. Don't give
Do you
up.
do you feel that way with the podcast? Do you feel like that you've been able to do that with the podcast? Do you feel like you're like,
Well, the podcast, right, was, okay, I've been out on the road for a year and a half saying to people, dream the impossible dream, right? Dare to try. But I realized it's more than that, right? It's what my shirt says now, live your impossible. It's about, how do I have conversations with some of the world's coolest people who've lived impossible dreams, and then talk to them about how they did it, so that we can help everybody at home to live their dreams and live their impossible, and to know that nothing's impossible. So that's the mission behind the podcast. Do I think we've accomplished it? No, I think we're in the middle of it. I mean, I think we're 7 or 8 episodes in, and please go to our Impossible Dreams page on YouTube and subscribe, and check us out on Instagram.
And you're on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as
well.
Spotify,
Apple, yeah. And I don't know. The mission to me is, it's the most important work of my life, to try and help people to live a better life, really to help them and help themselves. That's the service,
Yeah. Well, I could tell you that on top of that, because I've listened to your podcast even before, and subscribed to it before we started chatting. And also, I've also obviously known your other work as well. So I want to tell you that from my vantage point and my perspective, the work that you did before this, and that being your career, right? Your Light in the Piazza and Little Night Music and all this stuff, has meant a lot to me. And then on top of it, all the things that you're doing now are affecting me in a similar way. So I say this because I want you to know that everything that you did do before from a career aspect is also very important to me. You know what I mean? And very important to a lot of people. And also what you're doing now is an
extension.
Yeah, an extension, and bringing it to that next level. Yeah. And I appreciate all the work you're doing. And I believe in you.
Likewise.
Man, I appreciate you saying that. I've got all the posters from the shows right here. I miss it. I loved it. I still love it. I hope to do it again someday. I certainly am not looking at all of that as anything less than what I'm doing now. It's I like what you said, Christian. It's an extension of just my soul and what I want to do and how I want to help people in whatever way that I can. Yeah, I mean, that's a great honor to know that, my theater work inspires you in a way that Anthony Warlow inspired me, because I wouldn't have been in the business without that guy. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, I want to do that. I want to kind of be like that. I want to have that kind of career, or at least try. And so that's awesome, man. Thank you. Yeah. And I think I want to be like you. I think it's about simply expanded consciousness. It's that it really is like, Jesus might be a weird, I'm not saying I want to be a martyr. I'm saying I want to continue to expand my consciousness to the point where I can really not just survive in life, but thrive and help other people to do the same. And I also think we're living in really interesting times. The New York Times had Peter Kingsnorth on talking about AI as the Antichrist. And it's like, what? And I was like, what are we talking about here? And it was like, oh, well, if Christ is just Christ energy, which is love and light and recognition of one's divinity, right? Like we were talking about earlier, that you are a piece of God, you are divine, the divinity is within each of us and all around. Then the Antichrist is the opposite of that. It's people who refuse to recognize their own divinity and perhaps outsource it to another individual or a power or a person who could manipulate it, right? So this was a conversation that inspired these thoughts of like, oh, well, if somebody out there is, whoever the AI developers are, if the wrong person is developing the thing and can develop an AI that could actually persuade, right, or influence more and more people on a grand scale to deny their own divine nature, then you have a problem. You have a problem. And that to me is an interesting conversation. So when I say I want to be like, it's like, I couldn't feel more honored and blessed to feel like I'm sort of carrying some kind of torch of light that ignites other torches, And I see people as so good and so hungry and open to learn and grow, even like you guys, and it's like, okay, well, with whatever the hell I've learned, if I can help light more torches along the, Olympic way, let's do it, man. Because then you guys go put the podcast out and you do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And 20 years from now, you're on some kid's podcast and you're the guy that he said. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, for sure. Let's do it indeed. I appreciate you being here and taking the time, and I appreciate you in general. And this means a hell of a lot. It really does. Likewise, and we've been doing a lot of research. I mean, I knew a lot about you beforehand, but I've been doing a lot of research into you in general. And yeah, I mean, I've said it and I'll say it again. Like, I appreciate all of it. I believe in you. And I'm going to continue to follow you. I'm going to encourage everyone to follow you and follow your journey, and because I think it's inspiring, and I think you're doing something that's really profound.
Thank you, brothers. I appreciate you guys. I send much love to you and your families in the holidays, and keep me posted, man. I'm in your corner, so reach out. You got questions, or even on the podcast end of things. I mean, I'm just figuring it out too, but I think you guys are doing a great job.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you. Appreciate it. Happy holidays.
You too.
I Want to Be Like You with Elbi Cespedes is produced by Elbi and Kristin Cespedes. Special thanks to Angelina Cespedes, Vincenzo Salvatore Cakes, and of course, Aaron Lazar.